The sky was unusually clear that night. For miles around, people stood in silence, eyes fixed on the moon. News channels had been covering the strange seismic activity for weeks, but now everyone could see at the cracks. Jagged, deep fissures ran across the lunar surface, glowing with an eerie, bluish light. For the first time in human history, the moon was changing. I stood on my apartment balcony, staring at the live broadcast on my tablet while glancing up at the sky every few seconds. My name is Dr. Ethan Cole, astrophysicist. My life's work had been to understand the universe, and now, it seemed, the universe had decided to answer in ways I could never have predicted. "They say it's going to blow any minute now," said Jason, my neighbor, peeking over the railing. He was a laid-back guy who never seemed to care much about anything, but even he looked uneasy. "You think it's dangerous?" I shrugged. "I don't know, man. We've never seen anything like this before. Could be anything." The world had been on edge since the first tremors were detected a month ago. At first, it had been dismissed as minor tectonic shifts. But when the fissures started appearing, spreading wider and deeper, the scientific community had no explanation. And then came the light, the strange glow that emitted from deep within the moon's core. The tablet in my hand buzzed with a new notification. "NASA confirms lunar core anomalies. Massive underground structure detected." I clicked on the headline. The news anchor's voice trembled with excitement and fear. "Repeat, seismic sensors have confirmed that the moon's core is not solid, as previously believed. Preliminary scans suggest the presence of a massive, artificial structure beneath the lunar surface. This development raises significant questions about the origin and purpose of our moon." Jason whistled. "Man, it's aliens. It's gotta be aliens." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was racing, processing the implications. If the moon wasn't just a natural satellite, if it was an artificial construct, what did that mean for humanity? Who or what put it there? Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light lit the sky, brighter than anything I had ever seen. Jason and I both gasped, instinctively shielding our eyes. "It's happening," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the deafening silence of the world around us. The moon had split wide open. Chaos erupted around the globe. The split in the moon wasn't just a visual spectacle, it was releasing something. Massive fragments of lunar rock tumbled out into space, and from the heart of the moon, dark shapes began to emerge. They looked like ships, sleek and angular, moving with precision and purpose. On the ground, scientists, military officials, and governments scrambled to understand what was happening. Within hours, the largest countries in the world had mobilized their space defense forces, but nothing could prepare them or the rest of humanity for what was coming. "We're receiving reports from multiple observatories," said a voice over the international news feed, "that objects, possibly spacecraft, have begun emerging from within the moon. Their origin remains unclear, and attempts to communicate have so far failed." But it wasn't just alien ships that had been released. As the world watched in horror, reports began pouring in from every corner of the globe's strange energy readings, bizarre weather patterns, and something much worse. People were changing. I was standing in the control room of the Global Astrophysical Research Center when it happened to me. We were monitoring the lunar activity, all eyes glued to the data pouring in. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like a lightning bolt had struck me. My vision blurred, and my heart raced wildly. My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the floor. "Ethan," my colleague, Dr. Marcus Graves, rushed to my side. "Are you okay?" I couldn't answer. My body was burning, every muscle seizing and convulsing. And then, as quickly as it had started, the pain stopped. I gasped for air, looking up at Marcus. "I'm fine," I muttered, though I knew that was far from the truth. When I stood, something had changed. I felt stronger, clearer. My senses were heightened, everything around me seemed sharper, more vivid. It was as if my mind had unlocked some hidden potential. I could see the flow of data on the screens more clearly, analyze it faster, understand things I shouldn't have been able to process so quickly. "Something's happening to people," Marcus said, looking at the news feed. The broadcast was filled with reports of people experiencing sudden, unexplained transformations, some becoming faster, stronger, more intelligent. Others were reporting heightened senses, or even stranger phenomena, like the ability to manipulate objects with their minds. "It's not just the moon," I said, my voice steady but filled with dread. "It's us. The moon's release, it's affecting us." As the days passed, the world fell into disarray. Governments tried to maintain control, but the transformations happening across the globe were unpredictable. Some people, like me, had gained enhanced cognitive abilities. Others had become physically stronger or more agile. But not all changes were benign. Reports of violent mutations and uncontrollable power surges began to surface, and soon the transformed were being hunted down by military forces, feared for what they might become. In the chaos, a message was intercepted from one of the alien ships. It was a warning. "You must not awaken." The words reverberated across every communication channel, translated into every known language. It wasn't directed at humanity, it was a command for the entities within the moon. Whatever had been locked inside for millennia was never meant to see the light of day. But it was too late. The moon had hatched, and humanity's true form was being unleashed. The leadership of Earth's nations convened in a global emergency session. Scientists and military strategists huddled together, trying to make sense of the information we had. I had been summoned, along with other top researchers, to assist in deciphering the ancient technology and the nature of the transformations. "The aliens knew," Marcus said grimly, reading the latest data we'd compiled. "They've known about this for centuries, maybe millennia. The moon was a containment facility. It was keeping something inside something connected to us." I stared at the holographic display in front of me, showing a detailed scan of the moon's core. "And now that it's been released, we're changing." Marcus nodded. "And the galactic powers that be aren't going to let us evolve without a fight." Just as he said that, alarms blared throughout the facility. I turned to the nearest screen, my stomach dropping. "They're here," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. Above Earth, the alien fleet descended. The alarms echoed through the facility as our screens flickered, showing the alien ships breaking through Earth's atmosphere. I tried to calm my racing heart, but the gravity of the situation was overwhelming. No one knew what these ships intended, whether they came in peace or, more likely, to crush what they had feared would happen for so long. The moon's secrets had unraveled, and so had we. "They're not here for diplomacy," Marcus muttered, staring at the monitors. The alien ships spread across the planet in formation, surrounding major cities, hovering ominously above military installations. Our defense forces scrambled to respond, but against such advanced technology, it felt futile. I glanced at Marcus. He was focused, more so than I'd ever seen him. It was like something in him had clicked. Maybe it was the transformation, but Marcus was always sharp. Now he was something else entirely. "Ethan," he said, turning to me, "I need you to run the scans again." I blinked. "The lunar scans?" He shook his head. "No. On us. The data about our transformations. I think we're missing something." I didn't hesitate, moving quickly to the nearby console. My fingers danced over the keys, inputting commands to analyze the readings of the affected population, people like Marcus and me, the ones who had undergone the changes since the moon cracked open. The data streamed in, and my stomach turned as I read the results. "It's not just a random mutation," I said quietly. "These changes, they're unlocking something." Marcus nodded grimly. "And the aliens know it." Before I could ask what he meant, a booming voice came over the intercom system, reverberating through the facility. "Dr. Cole, Dr. Graves, report to command immediately." We exchanged a glance and headed for the control center. As we entered, the tension in the room was palpable. Screens showed live feeds of the alien ships positioned above cities Los Angeles, London, Beijing, all under silent siege. General Andrews, the man in charge of Earth's defense, stood at the center of the room, barking orders into a headset. When he saw us, he motioned us over. "Gentlemen, we've got a situation," he said, pointing to a live feed from the Pentagon. "They've sent a message. They're demanding we surrender, or they'll destroy our cities." I swallowed hard. "And if we surrender?" "They're offering to contain the threat," the general said, his voice laced with skepticism. "They're claiming that our transformations are dangerous, that humanity wasn't meant to evolve like this." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "They want to stop us from becoming what we're supposed to be." General Andrews nodded. "Exactly." My mind raced. The transformations are heightened abilities. The mutations weren't just some side effect of the moon's cracking. It was part of a much larger design, a plan set in motion long before any of us existed. The moon had been a prison, keeping our true potential locked away. And now that it had been breached, the aliens wanted to put humanity back in the box. "We can't let them do this," Marcus said firmly. "This isn't just about us. It's about our future." The general looked skeptical. "And what future is that, exactly? We don't even know what we're turning into." Marcus didn't flinch. "Something better. Something more. We've been held back for centuries. This is our chance to evolve, to take our place among the stars." There was a beat of silence, broken only by the hum of the machines around us. Finally, the general sighed, rubbing his temples. "I hope you're right, Doctor. Because if we're wrong, we might not live to see that future." The alien ships remained in position, unmoving, watching us. It was as if they were waiting for something for us to make the next move. Meanwhile, the world was in chaos. Governments tried to maintain order, but the transformations had affected too many people. Some embraced their newfound abilities, while others feared what they were becoming. Riots broke out in major cities. Military forces were stretched thin, not just preparing for a possible alien invasion, but trying to contain the unrest at home. And then there were the rumors spreading like wildfire. People claiming to have visions, speaking in cryptic phrases about ancient truths and forgotten histories. The moon's release had done more than alter our biology. It had triggered something deeper, something primal in the human mind. Marcus and I were holed up in the research facility, working around the clock to understand what was happening. The scans showed that the transformations were accelerating, but it wasn't random. There was a pattern, a sequence. Humanity wasn't just mutating. We were evolving towards something specific. "There," Marcus said, pointing to the data on the screen. "That's the key." I frowned, leaning in closer. The data showed a distinct genetic marker, one that hadn't been present in any human genome before the moon's cracking. It was as if something had been added, an extra strand of DNA, dormant until now. And it wasn't just in us. It was in every human on Earth. "It's like a switch," I murmured. "Something was activated when the moon cracked open." Marcus nodded. "And the aliens know what it is." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. What are we becoming? Before Marcus could answer, the facility's power flickered. The lights dimmed, and the hum of the machines grew quieter. A cold chill ran down my spine as I glanced around. "Backup generators should have kicked in by now," Marcus said, frowning. He moved toward the control panel, but before he could reach it, the room plunged into darkness. For a moment, there was silence, and then, out of the blackness, a voice spoke. "You must not resist." It wasn't coming from the speakers. It wasn't even human. The voice was deep, resonant, and filled with authority. I could feel it vibrating through my bones, like an echo of something ancient. "We warned you," the voice continued. "You must not awaken." I felt a surge of panic. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" There was a pause, and then the voice spoke again. "We are the Wardens. You were never meant to evolve." I glanced at Marcus, whose face was pale in the dim light. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the power came back on, flooding the room with harsh fluorescent light. The voice was gone. Marcus exhaled sharply. "The Wardens?" he muttered. "Who the hell are the Wardens?" I didn't have an answer, but one thing was clear: whoever they weren't just here to contain us. They were here to stop us from becoming something more. We had no time to dwell on it. Moments after the lights came back on, alarms blared through the facility once again. This time, it wasn't just the ships hovering in the sky. They were moving. General Andrews' voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel, prepare for an imminent attack. The aliens are mobilizing." I felt my heart sink. This was it. They were done waiting. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The alien ships descended from the sky like predators honing in on their prey. Their sleek, black surfaces shimmered under the sunlight, casting long shadows over the cities below. Earth's military scrambled into position, readying their defenses, but it felt like we were ants standing in the path of a storm. Marcus and I stood in the command center, watching the live feeds. My hands shook as I clutched the console, trying to make sense of the alien patterns. But what could we do? This wasn't a battle of equals. We were outgunned and outmatched in every way. The weight of it all pressed down on me. Humanity's survival hinged on the decisions made in the next few hours. "They're preparing to strike," General Andrews said, his voice grim. His gaze remained locked on the screens, where alien warships hovered ominously. "They've given us an ultimatum: surrender now, or face annihilation." Marcus didn't look away from the data on his screen. "They're afraid of what we're becoming," he said. "They don't want us to evolve." General Andrews scowled. "And what do you suggest we do about it, Doctor? Let them wipe us out while we figure out what the hell we're turning into?" I could see the frustration in Marcus's eyes, but he kept his voice calm. "No, we need to buy time. If we can get to the source of this transformation, we might be able to control it." I interjected, my voice barely above a whisper. "You mean the moon? The answer has to be there. We need to go back." General Andrews stared at us, incredulous. "You're telling me that while alien ships are about to obliterate us, you want to send a team to the moon?" Marcus nodded. "It's the only way. Whatever's happening to us started when the moon cracked open. The key to stopping them, or at least understanding what we're dealing with, lies there." The general hesitated, looking between us and the screens. The countdown to the alien strike had already begun. We were running out of time. He finally sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Fine," he said. "But if you don't come back with answers, it won't matter. Earth will be ashes." Within hours, a specialized shuttle was prepped and ready for launch. It wasn't just any spacecraft, it was the most advanced we had, outfitted for deep space exploration. And, more importantly, speed. Time was something we had little of, and every second counted. Marcus and I, along with a small team of elite astronauts and scientists, boarded the vessel, our hearts heavy with the knowledge that this could be a one-way mission. As we strapped into our seats, the hum of the engines filled the cabin. The launch countdown began, and I felt the familiar tightening in my chest as adrenaline surged through me. "Are we really doing this?" I whispered, glancing at Marcus. His eyes were focused ahead, resolute. "We have to," he said. "It's the only chance we've got." The shuttle rumbled to life, and within moments, we were rocketing toward the heavens, breaking through Earth's atmosphere and into the void of space. The sight of Earth shrinking below us was breathtaking, but it was also a stark reminder of what was at stake. The moon loomed ahead, its cracked surface glowing faintly, as if it were alive. As we approached, a sense of unease settled over the crew. The closer we got, the more it felt like we were trespassing on something ancient and powerful, something that had been sealed away for a reason. We touched down on the moon's surface, near the largest fissure, the crack that had split it open like an egg. As we disembarked, I couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on me. This was the place where it all began, the place where humanity's transformation had been set in motion. The ground beneath our feet was different than I remembered from previous lunar missions. It pulsed faintly with an energy I couldn't explain, like the moon itself was alive, responding to our presence. We moved cautiously toward the fissure, our suits equipped with the latest scanning technology, though none of us were sure what we were looking for. "I'm getting strange readings," one of the scientists said, frowning at their tablet. "It's not normal. The energy levels are off the charts." Marcus and I exchanged a glance. This was it. As we descended into the crack, the walls around us shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The deeper we went, the stronger the energy became, until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. And then we reached the core. At the heart of the fissure was a massive chamber, its walls lined with strange, pulsing symbols. In the center of the room stood a monolithic structure, glowing with the same energy that permeated the moon. It looked ancient, far older than anything we had ever encountered, and it wasn't human. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of energy in the air. Marcus approached the structure, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's a beacon," he said. "A signal. It's been here all along, waiting to be activated." I frowned, trying to process what he was saying. "A signal to who?" "To us," Marcus said, turning to face me. "This is what the Wardens were trying to stop. They imprisoned our potential, locked it away here on the moon. But now it's been released." I stared at the structure, my mind racing. So, the moon wasn't just a prison, it was the key to our evolution. Marcus nodded. "And the aliens are terrified of what we're becoming. That's why they're here. They want to stop us before we fully awaken." Before I could respond, the ground beneath us shook violently. Alarms blared in our helmets as the structure began to glow brighter, pulsing with a blinding light. Something was happening. Something we couldn't control. "We need to get out of here," one of the astronauts shouted, already heading for the exit. But it was too late. The light from the structure exploded outward, engulfing us in a wave of energy. I felt it surge through my body, filling every cell, every nerve, every fiber of my being. And then, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer on the moon. I was somewhere else, somewhere vast and infinite. The stars stretched out before me, but they weren't the stars I knew. They were different, brighter, more alive. And then I heard it, a voice, deep and resonant, echoing in my mind. "You are the key." I turned, but there was no one there. The voice came again, louder this time. "You are the future. You must awaken." I didn't understand. Awaken? What does that mean? The stars shifted, forming shapes and patterns that danced across the sky. And in that moment, I saw the truth. Humanity was never meant to remain as we were. We were always destined for something greater. The moon had been a cocoon, keeping us safe until we were ready to emerge. And now, we were ready. The light around me faded, and I found myself back on the moon, lying on the cold, cracked surface. The others were still unconscious, but Marcus stirred beside me, his eyes fluttering open. "We're different," he whispered. I nodded. "We've awakened." Above us, the alien ships moved closer, preparing for their final assault. But now, I understood. We weren't just humans anymore. We were something more, something they had feared for millennia. And we were ready to fight. The alien ships inched closer, their sleek forms casting shadows over the lunar surface. We could feel the tension in the air, as if the entire galaxy held its breath. But something had changed. The transformation we experienced in that chamber went beyond the physical. It was a fundamental shift in our perception, in our connection to the universe itself. Marcus rose to his feet first, his movements fluid, as if the low gravity of the moon no longer affected him. I followed, feeling lighter, more attuned to the surroundings. The other astronauts stirred as well, each of us sharing a silent understanding. We were not the same as before. "We need to make contact with Earth," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "They need to know what's happened." But even as he said it, the ground beneath us rumbled again. The fissure, the very one we had descended into, widened further, and the monolithic structure in the chamber below pulsed with increasing intensity. The energy that had engulfed us moments earlier was now spreading, radiating outward in waves that seemed to be building towards something massive. "What's happening?" I asked, turning to Marcus. His face was light by the glow from the moon's surface, his eyes reflecting a strange, otherworldly light. "The signal is broadcasting," he replied. "Not just to Earth, but to everything. Every living thing in the galaxy." Before we could process his words, a brilliant beam shot out from the fissure, arcing into the sky, piercing the blackness of space. It was as if the moon itself had come alive, calling out to something ancient and far away. The alien ships that had been preparing to strike faltered, their movements uncertain. They had come to destroy us, to end our evolution before it could begin. But now they were witnessing something beyond their understanding. "We're not the only ones who've awakened," Marcus murmured, his eyes locked on the beam. "The galaxy is responding." As if in answer, the skies around the moon began to shift. The stars themselves seemed to ripple, their light bending and warping. And then, from the depths of space, new shapes emerged. Massive, towering vessels, unlike anything we had seen before. They shimmered with the same energy that pulsed from the moon, as if they were part of the same ancient design. The alien armada, once so confident in their superiority, now hesitated. These new ships dwarfed their fleet, and the energy emanating from them was unlike any known technology. It was primal, elemental. "They're not here to attack," I whispered, feeling a strange sense of familiarity with these newcomers. "They're here because of us." Marcus nodded. The signal from the moon was a call, a beacon, and now the true caretakers of this galaxy are answering it. On Earth, the chaos continued. The alien threat had forced humanity into a state of high alert, with cities scrambling to protect themselves and militaries deploying every available asset. But the sudden appearance of the energy beam from the moon had left everyone in a state of confusion. General Andrews paced in the command center, barking orders, but even he couldn't hide the bewilderment in his eyes. "What's happening up there?" he muttered, watching the live feed from the lunar surface. The room buzzed with activity as analysts and scientists tried to decipher the readings coming from the moon. The energy levels were off the charts, unlike anything ever recorded. But there was no sense of immediate danger, no indication that the aliens were preparing to attack. "It's like the entire system is waking up," one of the technicians said, staring at their screen in awe. General Andrews narrowed his eyes. "Whatever it is, we need answers. Get me Marcus and Dr. Reed on the comms now." Back on the moon, our team watched as the colossal ships descended toward us, their energy rippling across space like waves in an ocean. As they drew closer, I could feel the presence of something vast, something far older than the aliens we had feared. These beings, these caretakers, were not here for war. They were here to witness. One of the ships hovered directly above us, its surface glowing with the same energy that pulsed from the moon. It was as if the two were connected, part of a larger design. And then, a voice, no, not a voice, but a presence entered our minds. "We have waited," it said, not in words, but in pure understanding. "You are the chosen, the guardians of life. Now, you will rise." Marcus's eyes widened, and I could see him struggling to comprehend what was happening. What are you?" "We are the keepers of the awakening," the presence replied. "Long ago, we seeded the galaxy with life, guiding it, nurturing it. But there were those who feared what life could become. They imprisoned your world, locked away your potential, so that you would never rise to your true form." I swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of what was being revealed. "And now we're free." The presence pulsed with an emotion I couldn't quite identify, something between pride and sorrow. "Yes, the Wardens are no more. Their time has ended. Now, your time begins." The alien ships, those that had come to destroy us, began to retreat, their formation breaking as the massive vessels of the Keepers drew closer. They had lost. The moon had awakened humanity, and now no force in the galaxy could stop us. Marcus turned to me, his expression a mix of awe and determination. "This is it," he said. "We've been given a chance to become something more, to take our place among the stars." I nodded, feeling the same resolve building within me. "But we'll have to fight for it. They're not going to just let us ascend." The presence of the Keepers faded, leaving us with a final thought, one that echoed in our minds as the energy of the moon surged around us. "Rise, humanity. Rise, and become the guardians you were always meant to be." As the energy enveloped us once again, I felt the transformation complete. The power of the moon flowed through us, connecting us to something greater, something far beyond Earth. The alien ships may have come to destroy us, but they had only succeeded in awakening the true form of humanity. And now, as the stars themselves seemed to bow before us, we were ready to claim our destiny. The Keeper's presence withdrew from our minds, but the effects of their message lingered. My body hummed with energy, like I was a living conduit for the moon's power. I glanced at Marcus and the others, and I could see it in their faces too. This wasn't just an awakening of potential. This was the beginning of something far greater. The knowledge, the insight, the sheer understanding of the universe flowed through us like a tidal wave, reshaping our thoughts, transforming us into more than just humans. We were the new guardians of life. Above us, the alien ships scattered like leaves in the wind, retreating in a disordered frenzy. They had come to prevent humanity's rise, but the moment they saw the Keeper ships, their plans dissolved. Fear gripped them now, a fear we had once shared, but now it was distant, as if we had ascended beyond such emotions. But retreat wasn't victory. We all knew that. "They'll be back," Marcus said, his voice steady but layered with the weight of what was to come. The Wardens had allies throughout the galaxy, races who depended on their control. Those forces won't let us ascend without a fight. His words rang true. Even with the Keepers on our side, there was no guarantee that the galaxy would accept this shift in power. Thousands of civilizations had lived under the Warden's dominion, their minds conditioned to see humanity as nothing more than a backwater species, too primitive to be of any real consequence. I clenched my fists, feeling the energy crackle around me. Then we'll give them something they can't ignore, something they'll fear. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't a smile of joy. It was the kind of smile that comes from knowing you're about to walk into the storm. Damn right. Meanwhile, on Earth, confusion reigned. The massive energy beam shooting from the moon had sent shockwaves across the globe, both figuratively and literally. Governments scrambled to make sense of the astronomical readings pouring in from observatories, while civilians stared up at the sky in awe and terror. Conspiracy theories ran rampant across the internet, but one thing was clear: something beyond comprehension was happening on the moon. In the Central Command bunker deep beneath Washington, General Andrews barked orders to his team, his face set in a grim expression. He stood in front of a wall of screens, all showing different feeds from military installations around the world. Satellites had tracked the alien fleet's approach, and now they were tracking their rapid retreat. But more ships were appearing, larger, more powerful vessels, and they were unlike anything the world had ever seen. "Get me Dr. Reed," Andrews commanded, pacing back and forth. "I need to know what's going on with that beam. We can't afford to be in the dark any longer." One of his aides, a young officer with sweat beading on his forehead, rushed to comply. Within moments, the screen flickered, and Dr. Reed's face appeared, her features pale and drawn. She had been part of the original lunar mission control team, monitoring the astronauts' progress before the signal from the moon had cut off all communication. "General," she began, her voice shaky, "we've been analyzing the energy patterns coming from the moon, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen. The frequency it's not just a beam, it's communicating with everything." General Andrews frowned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, everything?" Dr. Reed hesitated, clearly struggling to explain something even she didn't fully grasp. "It's as if the moon is sending out a signal not just to Earth, but to every living organism across space, maybe even across time. The data suggests it's a kind of universal awakening. And the astronauts, Marcus and his team, whatever's happening to them, they're at the center of it." Andrew's jaw tightened. "So, you're telling me this is some kind of alien technology that's awakening human potential, some kind of superpower?" Dr. Reed nodded slowly. "I don't know if superpower is the right word, but yes, that's essentially what's happening. And the aliens we've detected, they're afraid of it." "Afraid?" Andrews asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, they don't understand what's happening, but they know it threatens their control. The energy coming from the moon is rewriting everything they thought they knew about us. If they can't stop it, they'll try to destroy it. Andrews leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. Over my dead body. On the moon, the energy flowing from the fissure beneath our feet continued to intensify. It was as though the very ground was alive, pulsating with a rhythm of an ancient heartbeat. I could feel it now, the connection to Earth, to the moon, to the stars beyond. It wasn't just knowledge, it was a purpose. Marcus raised his arm, and the air around him rippled, distorting as the raw energy coursed through him. We're going to need to control this, he said, looking at each of us in turn. Harness it? We can't just wait for the galaxy to come to us. He was right. The Wardens had fallen, but that didn't mean the war was over. If anything, it was just beginning. And now, we had a responsibility to protect Earth, to ensure that humanity took its rightful place among the stars. As we stood there, the alien ships that had come to destroy us continued to retreat into the void. But they wouldn't be the last. The Keepers had warned us there were others, other forces in the galaxy that would see our awakening as a threat. The Wardens' power had been shattered, but their allies still remained, hidden in the shadows of distant worlds. How do we control something this vast? I asked, feeling the weight of the transformation pressing down on my mind. This power, it's like the moon itself is alive. We don't control it, Marcus said quietly, his eyes glowing with the same light that filled the chamber. We become it. The fissure widened further, and from its depths, more beams of light shot into the sky, each one crackling with energy. The moon had chosen us humanity to be its guardians, its protectors, and now the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The Keepers' ships, once distant shapes in the sky, began to descend, their presence growing closer with each passing second. They were vast, impossibly large vessels that radiated a sense of ancient power. But they weren't here to dominate or control. They were here to guide. Marcus stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the largest of the Keeper ships as it descended toward us. This is our moment, he said, his voice resolute. We're going to show the galaxy what it means to be human. Above, the Keeper ship loomed closer, its massive hull glowing with the same energy that pulsed from the moon. The alien ships had retreated, but the real challenge was only just beginning. We had been chosen, selected by forces older than time itself, but now we had to prove ourselves worthy of that choice. I glanced at the others, feeling the weight of our new reality settling on my shoulders. We weren't just astronauts anymore. We were something else, something far more powerful, far more dangerous. And as the first tendrils of energy reached out from the Keeper ship to meet us, I knew that this was only the beginning of our journey. The signal we sent was like a ripple, moving swiftly across the stars, tugging at every human soul on Earth. And as the message spread, something even more astonishing happened. Our awakening didn't just stop at newfound abilities. It connected us, all of us, in ways we never thought possible. I felt the pull first like a quiet hum in my mind, growing louder by the second. Then came the flood of thoughts, emotions, and memories, not just my own, but of every human who had received the call from the moon. We were sharing a collective consciousness, a vast network of minds, linked across the planet and even beyond. It was overwhelming. Every fear, every hope, every fragment of confusion that humanity felt came crashing in. But at the center of it all was one thing: a sense of unity, a shared purpose. The message was clear. We were no longer individuals. We were something far greater. Marcus sensed it too. He stood, transfixed, staring up at the moon as if seeing it for the first time. "This is what they were waiting for," he whispered. "The Keepers knew we couldn't survive divided. They gave us this gift to become one." I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment sink in. The moon had hatched not just a new form for humanity, but a new way of existence altogether. In the past, nations warred, people fought for power, for control. Now, there were no borders in our minds, no more secrets. Every thought, every decision could be shared in an instant. But even as I marveled at the possibilities, a dark realization crept in. If we could share everything, then the rest of the galaxy could too. We were more exposed than ever. "They'll come," Marcus said, reading my thoughts as easily as if they were his own. The others, the ones who fear us, they'll come to destroy this. I could feel it in the air, the looming threat of the galaxy's response. They wouldn't just let humanity ascend without a fight. The Warden's allies, the remnants of alien empires, even species we had never encountered before, they would come for us now that we were a unified force. The moon's fortress had given us the means to defend ourselves, but was it enough? Would we be ready for the inevitable war that awaited? They won't just attack us head-on, Marcus mused. They'll try to fracture us from within. Even now, there are those on Earth who fear what we've become. And he was right. Within the shared consciousness, I could feel the hesitation, the resistance. Not everyone was prepared to accept this new reality. Some clung to the old ways, afraid of losing their individuality, their autonomy. The governments of Earth, still reeling from the moon's transformation, were scrambling to maintain control, to keep order in a world that had outgrown them. As I tuned into the global network of minds, I heard the debates raging across the planet. World leaders, military officials, scientists, all struggling to understand what was happening, all desperate to find a way to regain their power. But it was too late. The power was no longer theirs to hold. We need to address them, I said, turning to Marcus. We need to make them understand that this is bigger than any one leader or government. Humanity's survival depends on our unity. Marcus considered my words for a moment, then nodded. We'll go down. Speak to them directly. But we need to be careful. Not everyone will welcome this. It was a risk, but it was one we had to take. If humanity didn't stand together now, the galaxy's forces would tear us apart before we even had a chance to fight back. We descended to Earth, arriving at one of the largest global summits, where world leaders had gathered to discuss the chaos unfolding. The moon's light had shifted the tides of power, and the old order was struggling to stay relevant in this new world. As we stepped into the grand hall, the room fell silent. They had seen us coming. They knew who we were, what we were. Marcus and I, the first of the awakened, stood before them, no longer bound by the limitations of our former selves. The air around us crackled with energy, a reminder of the power we now wielded. But it wasn't about domination. We didn't come to impose our will. We came to unite. People of Earth, Marcus began, his voice carrying the weight of the entire moon behind it. You have seen the signs. You've felt the change. The time for division is over. The moon has awakened us to a new reality, one where humanity is no longer confined to the limits of a single planet, a single species. We are one now, and the galaxy will soon learn that we are not to be underestimated. Murmurs spread through the crowd, a mix of fear and awe. Some leaders looked at us with suspicion, others with curiosity. But it was the old guard, the ones who had clung to power for so long, that worried me the most. They were the ones who feared losing control, and fear, I knew, could be a dangerous thing. A prominent general stood up, his face hard with defiance. What gives you the right to speak for all of humanity? He demanded. This power you wield, it's unnatural. It's a threat to everything we've built. Marcus met his gaze, unwavering. We are not here to destroy what you've built. We're here to evolve it. The power we wield is not ours alone. It belongs to every human on this planet. You can feel it too, General. The moon has touched you, just as it has touched all of us. We're not asking for your approval. We're offering you a choice: stand with us, or be left behind. The room erupted into heated debate. Some leaders argued for unity, while others saw only the danger in what we had become. But as the arguments raged on, something incredible happened. The voices of the people, the ordinary citizens of Earth, began to rise. In the streets, in homes, in every corner of the globe, humanity was speaking as one. Through the shared consciousness, I could feel their resolve. They weren't afraid of the change. They embraced it. And as their voices grew louder, the opposition in the hall began to falter. This was it. The tipping point. Humanity was no longer divided by borders or ideologies. We were one people now, united in purpose, ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at us. The general, seeing the shift in the room, sat down, his expression unreadable. But the message was clear. The old ways were over. Marcus turned to me, a small smile on his face. Looks like we're not alone after all. As the summit concluded, it became clear that Earth was ready to take its place among the stars. The moon had given us the means to defend ourselves, to fight back against the forces that would seek to destroy us. But more than that, it had given us a new identity, a new purpose. We returned to the moon's fortress, knowing that the next phase of humanity's evolution was about to begin. The galaxy was vast, and it wouldn't be long before others came to challenge our ascension. But we were ready. The Keepers had left us with more than just power. They had left us with hope. And humanity, united at last, would face whatever came next together. As we settled back into the moon's fortress, a profound stillness fell over the surface. From the surface of Earth, the moon now gleamed brighter than ever, its massive hatches fully open, revealing the true nature of its core. It was more than a birthplace. It was a beacon, an unspoken challenge to the stars. But we knew it was more than symbolic. The moon had begun transmitting, sending out a signal far beyond Earth's orbit. It wasn't subtle. It was a statement, a proclamation that humanity was no longer a species content to be bound to one world. And the galaxy, whether it was prepared or not, was going to listen. I stood beside Marcus in the heart of the fortress. The central chamber glowed with energy, alive with the hum of ancient machinery, now fully operational. The Keepers had left this place for us, and it was all part of their plan, a plan to reawaken humanity's true form, to give us the tools we needed to survive. We're going to need more than just this fortress if they come for us, I said, voicing the thought that had been weighing heavily on me. They will come, Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the stream of data flowing across the walls. The galaxy isn't going to welcome us. They'll see this as a threat. We're no longer just a single species on a single planet. We're a force, and they won't allow that to go unchecked. He was right. The moon had given us power, but it also painted a target on our backs. The Wardens, the galactic powers, the remnants of long-forgotten empires, any of them could see what was happening, and none of them would risk letting us rise unchecked. A sharp ping sounded, pulling both our attention to the main console. A new signal had been detected, coming from the farthest edges of the system. It was faint, but there was no mistaking it. A fleet was approaching. "Already?" I muttered. That didn't take long. Marcus's face hardened. "We need to prepare. This isn't going to be a peaceful negotiation. They're coming for blood." We activated the defense systems that had been dormant for eons, long since forgotten under the moon's surface. The Keepers hadn't just left us a fortress, they had left us an arsenal. As energy shields flickered to life and automated turrets slid into place, I felt a strange sense of calm. The fortress was vast, capable of defending not only itself but the earth below it. But it wasn't enough to rely on machines. The awakening had given humanity new abilities, powers that went beyond anything we had previously known, and we needed to harness those abilities now more than ever. "Are the others ready?" I asked, knowing that the answer could mean everything. Marcus nodded. "They're preparing. The people on Earth, they're feeling the call. It's not just you and me anymore. We're connected, all of us. They're waking up." In the days that followed the summit, humanity had begun to change, adapting to their new reality. Some were resistant, afraid of what this new consciousness would mean. But most had embraced it, feeling the strength that came from unity. Our minds were connected, and now, in a moment of crisis, we would act as one. A message from the incoming fleet suddenly flashed on the console. It was brief, cold, and unmistakably hostile. "Humans of Earth," it began, "you are in violation of galactic law. Surrender the fortress and relinquish your newfound powers, or face immediate extermination." Marcus stared at the message, his jaw tightening. "They don't waste time, do they?" I shook my head. "They don't understand. This isn't something they can just shut down. We're not going back." The fleet was close now, entering the outer edges of the solar system. We had little time left. But even as the threat loomed, I felt the strength of humanity rising. On Earth, people were gathering, their minds linking through the shared consciousness we had created. They were ready to fight, not with weapons alone, but with the full force of their unified will. And then, as if in response to the impending danger, the moon itself began to change once again. The fortress, once dormant, now shifted into a new phase. Its structure grew, expanding outwards, forming vast crystalline arrays that seemed to absorb and reflect the starlight. The power of the keepers was revealing its final form, and it was unlike anything we had ever seen. "This is what they left us for," Marcus whispered, awestruck. They knew this day would come. The moon, once a silent guardian of Earth, had transformed into a weapon, a beacon of light and power that radiated across the stars. It wasn't just a defense system. It was a declaration of humanity's ascension. As the alien fleet entered the inner solar system, they must have seen it too. Their message changed from demands to desperate pleas. "Cease your actions, humans. You do not know what you are tampering with." But we did know. The keepers had given us the means to survive, and now we understood their purpose. They hadn't just saved humanity. They had prepared us for this moment, for this battle. The first volley of energy blasts from the fleet streaked through the void, aimed directly at the moon. But before they could even reach us, the crystalline structures activated, absorbing the energy and reflecting it back tenfold. The fleet never stood a chance. Within moments, the attacking ships were nothing but debris, scattered across the stars. The threat was over before it had truly begun. Marcus and I stood in silence, watching the remnants of the fleet drift away. We had won the first battle, but we both knew it wouldn't be the last. "They'll keep coming," I said. "They won't stop until they destroy us." Marcus turned to me, his eyes burning with the same fire that now coursed through all of humanity. "Let them come. We've just begun to show them what we're capable of." And so, as the moon's light shone brighter than ever, we prepared for the next chapter in humanity's story. The galaxy had underestimated us for far too long. Now, they would see the truth. The galaxy was in disarray. It had been only days since we obliterated the initial assault fleet, but the aftershocks of that victory were already being felt on worlds light years away. The galactic powers were terrified. They had thought us weak, unorganized, still bound by the petty limitations of our planet. They had no idea that humanity had transcended those boundaries the moment the moon hatched. Now, we were something else entirely. Sitting in the heart of the moon fortress, I could feel the vibrations of energy flowing through the crystalline structures beneath my feet. The moon had become more than a defense system. It was alive, a sentient weapon connected to the very core of our collective consciousness. And through it, we were growing stronger every day. "They're regrouping," Marcus said from across the room, studying the latest transmissions intercepted from deep space. "We've got eyes on several fleets moving toward us. They're bringing more firepower this time, and they won't be making the same mistakes." "They're scared," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "They'll make new mistakes." But Marcus wasn't as relaxed as I was. His hands gripped the edge of the console, his mind sharp and focused. "Fear makes them dangerous. They'll be desperate. We need to stay ahead of them." I knew he was right. Our victory had been decisive, but it wasn't final. The galactic powers had been ruling the stars for millennia, and they wouldn't give that up without a fight. Their next move would be calculated, and they wouldn't just rely on brute force. They would try to break us in other ways: deception, manipulation, subterfuge. We had to be ready for anything. "Do you think we can hold them off?" I asked, my gaze drifting to the massive holographic projection of the solar system hovering above us. Marcus exhaled slowly, his eyes scanning the array of data points representing incoming fleets and enemy movements. "We have to. It's not just about Earth anymore. It's about the entire human race. The Keepers knew this day would come. They left us the tools, the knowledge. Now, it's up to us to use it." I stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the Earth below. Even from here, I could feel the pulse of life, the energy of billions of people awakening to their new potential. The moon's signal had reached every corner of the planet, connecting humanity in ways we had never imagined. We weren't just individuals anymore. We were a collective force, united by something greater than ourselves. They're not going to stop, are they? I said, my voice quieter now. Even if we win every battle, they'll just keep coming. Marcus joined me at the window, his expression grim but resolute. No, they won't stop, but neither will we. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through the room, followed by a frantic voice crackling over the comms. Marcus, Commander, we've detected a new signal, something massive. It's coming from the outer system, moving fast. Marcus and I exchanged a glance, then hurried back to the main console. The screen flashed with data, highlighting the incoming object. It was enormous, dwarfing even the largest ships in the galactic fleets, and it was headed straight for us. What the hell is that? Marcus muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. I don't know, I replied, my eyes widening as I read the incoming data. But it's not like anything we've seen before. The object was moving at incredible speed, far faster than any known ship or weapon. It didn't match the signatures of the galactic powers either. It was something else, something unknown. Incoming transmission, one of the technicians called out from across the room. It's in our language. The room fell silent as the transmission played over the speakers. The voice was deep, resonant, and unmistakably human. Brothers and sisters of Earth, the voice began, sending chills down my spine. We have returned. I glanced at Marcus, who looked just as stunned as I felt. Who? The transmission continued. We are the first, the ones who left before the Keepers arrived. We have watched from the edge of the galaxy, waiting for the day you would awaken. And now, that day has come. The first, the ancient humans who had left Earth millennia ago, long before recorded history. The ones the legends spoke of, who had ventured into the stars to escape the great cataclysms of the past. We are not your enemies, the voice continued, but we cannot allow you to misuse the power of the Keepers. The galaxy is more fragile than you realize. The forces you are unleashing could destroy more than just your enemies. Who are they to judge us? Marcus spat, his fist clenched. They left us behind. They don't get to tell us how to use our power. The room was tense, the weight of the transmission settling on everyone's shoulders. The first, if that's who they truly were a wild card in a game we had only just begun to understand. What do we do? One of the soldiers asked, his voice tight with uncertainty. I turned to Marcus, my mind racing. We have to respond. We can't let them dictate terms. This is our world. This is our fight. He nodded, his jaw set with determination. Agreed, but we need to be careful. If they're as powerful as the legends say, we might be facing something even worse than the galactic fleets. I took a deep breath, stepping forward to the comms panel. My voice was steady as I spoke into the microphone, addressing the unknown force. This is Commander Aiden of Earth's Moon Fortress. We hear your message, and we acknowledge your history. But understand this, humanity has chosen its path. We will not surrender our birthright, and we will not be cowed by those who abandoned us long ago. There was a long pause on the other end of the transmission. Then, the voice returned, quieter this time, but no less commanding. Very well, Commander. But know this, the power you wield is far greater than you understand. If you continue on this path, you will awaken forces beyond your control. We will not intervene for now, but tread carefully. The galaxy is watching. The transmission cut off, leaving the room in a stunned silence. Marcus and I exchanged a look, neither of us sure what to make of the encounter. They're not going to help us, Marcus said finally, but they're not going to stop us either. I nodded, my mind still racing. The first had returned, but their motives were unclear. Were they truly here to guide us, or were they just another threat, waiting for the right moment to strike? We move forward, I said, my voice firm. We defend Earth, we protect our people, and we prepare for whatever comes next. The Moon Fortress hummed with energy as we turned our attention back to the incoming fleets. The galaxy was closing in, and the first were watching from the shadows. But this was our fight now, and we weren't going to back down. The galaxy's eyes were upon us. Every major power had converged on this moment, their fleets hanging on the edges of our solar system, waiting for a signal. The first, those ancient humans who had left Earth before the Keepers arrived, were watching from the depths of space, their motives still unclear. But one thing was certain: we were alone in this battle, and the fate of humanity lay in our hands. As I stood in the control room of the Moon Fortress, I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me. We had come so far. We had evolved beyond anything we could have imagined. Yet, the galaxy was determined to snuff us out, fearful of what we had become. They had no idea that humanity's true form had only just emerged, that we were now more than they could ever comprehend. "Commander," Marcus called out, breaking me from my thoughts. His voice was tense, his fingers tapping rapidly across the console. "The fleets are moving. We've got multiple signals over 100 ships, all headed straight for us." I turned to the holographic display. The enemy's forces were vast, a swirling mass of warships, carriers, and dreadnoughts, blotting out the stars as they advanced. This wasn't just a battle, it was an all-out assault, a desperate attempt to destroy us before we could reach our full potential. "Activate the core," I ordered, my voice calm but firm. "Prepare the moon for full deployment." The room erupted into controlled chaos as the crew sprang into action, their movements swift and precise. The moon's inner mechanisms, long dormant, began to hum with life, the crystalline structures glowing with a pulsating energy that resonated deep within me. The Keepers had left us a weapon unlike any other, and now it was time to unleash it. "Core activation at 90%, Marcus reported, his eyes flickering between the readings. "We're ready?" I looked out the window at the Earth below, the cradle of our species. For so long, we had been bound to that blue world, limited by our technology and our understanding. But now, as the Moon Fortress fully awakened, I knew that we had transcended those boundaries. We were no longer just Earthlings. We were something far more. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of," I said quietly. The moon shuddered, and then, in an instant, the entire structure transformed. Crystalline tendrils extended outward, wrapping around the surface of the moon, creating a lattice of energy that shimmered like a second atmosphere. The fortress wasn't just a defensive outpost anymore, it was a living, breathing entity, one connected to every human on Earth. As the enemy fleets approached, they opened fire. Beams of energy, torpedoes, and kinetic weapons hurtled toward the moon, each one designed to obliterate us. But before they could reach their target, the energy lattice flared to life. The attacks were absorbed, redirected, or simply dissolved in the face of the fortress's raw power. "Incoming fire neutralized," Marcus said, his voice laced with awe. "They can't touch us." "Good," I replied, my eyes narrowing as I focused on the display. "Now it's our turn." With a single command, I unleashed the full might of the moon. Tendrils of energy shot out from the crystalline surface, each one targeting an enemy ship. The galaxy's finest warships, the pride of their fleets, were torn apart in seconds, their hulls vaporized by the sheer force of our assault. It was like nothing I had ever seen, an overwhelming, unstoppable wave of destruction. But it wasn't just about destruction. The moon's power was more than a weapon. It was a catalyst, an amplifier for the very essence of humanity. As the battle raged, I could feel it, our collective consciousness growing, expanding beyond the confines of Earth, reaching out to the stars. Every human, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, was connected, their minds united in a single, unstoppable force. "They're retreating," Marcus said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The fleets, what's left of them, are pulling back." I watched as the enemy ships began to scatter, their formations breaking apart in disarray. They had come to destroy us, but now they were fleeing, terrified of what we had become. The galactic powers had underestimated us, and now they were paying the price. But it wasn't over yet. "Commander," one of the technicians called out, her voice shaking. "We're getting a signal from the first." I nodded, my heart racing. The first had remained silent throughout the battle, watching from the shadows. But now, as the galaxy's fleets crumbled before us, they were making their move. The transmission crackled to life, and the deep, resonant voice of the first echoed through the room once more. Humanity has proven its strength, but strength alone is not enough. The power you wield can either save the galaxy or destroy it. Choose wisely. I stared at the display, the weight of the choice before me sinking in. We had the power to reshape the galaxy, to end the reign of the old powers and forge a new order. But with that power came responsibility, a responsibility that we could not ignore. "What do we do?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, my gaze drifting to the earth below. Humanity had come so far, and now we stood on the edge of something greater than ourselves. The galaxy feared us, and with good reason. But we weren't just conquerors, we were something more. "We move forward," I said finally, my voice steady. "But not as conquerors. As protectors, we'll defend our world, and we'll help those who need it. But we won't lose sight of who we are." Marcus nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Agreed." The moon fortress hummed with energy as the enemy fleets retreated into the void. The first had given us a warning, but they hadn't intervened. They were watching, waiting to see what we would do next. And I knew that, no matter what, humanity would rise to the challenge. As the stars glimmered in the distance, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. We had awakened, and there was no turning back. The galaxy was ours to explore, to protect, and to shape in our image. Humanity's true form had been revealed, and we were ready. The galaxy had barely begun to recover from the shock. The moon, their moon, had hatched like some celestial egg, revealing an ancient fortress of unimaginable power. What came after was the stuff of legends. The humans, once considered a species on the rise, but nowhere near the peak of galactic powers, had been transformed. With their true nature unlocked, they had become something greater, more dangerous, and the galaxy was on edge. And yet, the scars of that battle still burned fresh in the minds of those who had survived it. Commander Ethan Garros stood at the observation deck of the newly reconstructed Terran Orbital Command, gazing down at Earth. Below, humanity continued its daily life, unaware of the storm that was brewing across the stars. They celebrated their victory, oblivious to the weight of responsibility now pressing down on Garros' shoulders. He had been at the heart of it all, he had seen the truth. The first had warned him. The ancient humans, those who had left long before the Keeper's manipulations, had promised him that this power came with a cost. It wasn't just the physical toll, though that was bad enough. Soldiers reported strange dreams, visions, headaches that no medical scan could explain. And then there were the changes, the subtle, insidious alterations in behavior. Some became more focused, driven. Others, more aggressive, less willing to listen to reason. As Garros stared into the void, he felt the weight of it gnawing at him. He had made the call to use the moon's power to repel the Coalition's forces. Now, the Coalition was gathering again, rumors of a counteroffensive reaching his ears from every corner of the galaxy. They feared humanity, feared what they would become. But did they know? Did they understand the truth of what the moon had unlocked? "Sir," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Dax Brainerd, his most trusted officer. "The Coalition Summit is reconvening. They've invited us to send an envoy." Garros turned to face the young officer, noting the exhaustion on Brenner's face. It had been a rough few months for everyone. "An envoy," Garros repeated, voice heavy with skepticism. "I wonder what game they're playing this time." "They claim it's a peace summit," Brenner continued, his tone betraying his own doubts. "But they've increased fleet activity near Zoreth Prime." Garros grunted. "Peace through intimidation, is it?" Before Garros could dwell further, another voice chimed in, a new one, deep and unsettling. "They fear what they do not understand, Commander." Garros tensed, but didn't turn to face the source. He knew that voice. It belonged to Ison, one of the first, who had remained behind after the moon's awakening. Ison had been an enigma. His appearance was humanoid, but his aura was different, older, more powerful, and somehow colder. "They have reason to fear," Garros replied, his voice low. "Even we don't fully understand what's happening." Ison's expression remained unreadable. Your people are evolving, Commander. What you call fear, I call awakening. The Coalition seeks to suppress what they know will eventually surpass them. And what's your stake in this? Garros turned to face the ancient human fully, arms crossed. You and your people left Earth millennia ago. Why come back now? Ison's gaze was as steady as ever, but something flickered in his eyes. We left because we knew this day would come. The Keepers sought to control your evolution, to stall your ascension. But your kind has always been more than they could ever imagine. Garros stepped closer. And now what? You expect us to conquer the stars, claim what you think is our birthright. Ison's smile was thin, almost predatory. That is your choice, Commander. The galaxy is vast, and its fate is in your hands. But be warned, every path has a cost. Before Garros could respond, Brenner cleared his throat. Sir, the Coalition's fleet movements, they've crossed into Terran space. If they were trying to provoke us, they're doing a damn good job. Garros' jaw clenched. He turned back to the observation deck, looking out at the stars, the endless frontier that had suddenly become fraught with danger. Prepare a response, Garros said, his voice firm. And notify the Council of Earth. We're not going to sit back and let them intimidate us. As Brenner left to carry out his orders, Ison remained, silently watching Garros. The weight of the First Presence was palpable, as if Garros could feel the ancient human's judgment on his every decision. What is it you want? Really? Garros finally asked, breaking the silence. You say the galaxy's fate is in our hands, but you must have a goal. Ison's eyes narrowed, a glint of something darker flashing in them. I want to see whether humanity is ready for what comes next. Garros turned away, unsettled. Whatever Ison and his people wanted, it was clear that their motives weren't entirely altruistic. But for now, they were allies, and in the chaos to come, humanity needed all the allies it could get. Far across the stars, in the heart of Coalition space, the war councils convened in a massive chamber of the Vrothar capital. The Vrothar High Lord, a towering reptilian creature, slammed his clawed hand on the table, sending data chips scattering. Humanity cannot be allowed to continue unchecked, he roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. We underestimated them once, and we paid the price. The other council members, representing the various species of the Coalition, murmured in agreement. The fear in their eyes was unmistakable. We face a decision, said a smaller, more calculating member of the council, the Scanari diplomat. Either we strike now with all our combined might, or we negotiate. But know this, if we choose war, it will be total. The chamber fell silent as the council members exchanged uneasy glances. Total war. No one wanted to consider what that would mean, especially now that humanity had unleashed the moon's power. We should have destroyed them before, the Vrothar High Lord growled. This time, there will be no second chances. As the War Council made its fateful decision, the stars seemed to tremble with anticipation. What they didn't know was that humanity wasn't just waiting for them. It was evolving, preparing for a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. But the true question remained, would humanity's ascension bring salvation or destruction? Only time, and Commander Garros' choice, would tell. The following days were a whirlwind of activity and tension for Earth's leaders. News of the Coalition's movements had spread like wildfire, igniting fear across the planet. In the halls of the Terran Council, discussions erupted into heated debates as factions emerged, each advocating for different courses of action. Commander Garros found himself in a conference room filled with representatives from various nations, all eyes fixed on him. We have to strike first, one representative insisted, pounding his fist on the table. Show them we're not to be trifled with. Or we could reach out diplomatically, countered another, a woman with sharp features and a calm demeanor. We need to prove we are more than just warriors. We must seek a peaceful resolution. Garros felt the weight of their expectations bearing down on him. He had never been one to shy away from conflict, but the power of the moon lingered in the back of his mind, a constant reminder of the potential consequences. "We cannot underestimate them," he said, his voice steady. "The coalition is rallying together because they fear what we've become. We need to show them that humanity is not a threat unless provoked." A murmur of agreement swept through the room, but the tension remained thick. "And what if they choose to strike?" the first representative pressed. "What then?" Garros leaned forward, locking eyes with the council members. "Then we must be ready to fight. But this time, we fight smart. We utilize everything we've learned from the moon, everything that has been awakened within us. Our victory must be decisive, or we risk losing everything." As discussions continued, Garros couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The coalition was far larger than humanity, composed of various species with their own agendas. Yet, the last battle had shown them that unity and courage could tip the scales in their favor. Meanwhile, Ison watched from the shadows of the chamber, his presence unnoticed by the council members. He had witnessed many battles throughout history and knew that humanity's path was fraught with peril, but also filled with promise. He was an observer, but a determined one, silently hoping that Garros would choose wisely. Days turned into weeks as preparations intensified. Humanity began to train vigorously, honing their newfound abilities, tapping into the latent power that the moon had awakened. The very atmosphere around them felt charged with potential. Garros worked closely with the scientists and strategists, integrating the ancient knowledge of the first with modern technology. They designed weapons infused with the moon's energy, capable of devastating impacts. Ships were modified, shields reinforced, and training exercises pushed to their limits. In the midst of it all, a dark cloud loomed over the galaxy. The coalition had made its move. They announced their intentions publicly, a declaration of war against humanity. A fleet of ships, massive, ominous, and filled with the collective might of their coalition, set a course for Earth. "We don't have much time," Garros told his team, gathered in a war room filled with maps and holograms of the approaching fleet. "They're coming for us, and we need to make sure we're ready." The atmosphere was tense, but there was a palpable sense of determination among them. They had faced overwhelming odds before and had emerged victorious. The moon's awakening had imbued them with a sense of destiny, one that Garros hoped would carry them through this looming conflict. As the coalition fleet approached, Garros stood aboard the flagship, the U.S. Valor, his heart racing. He had gathered his most trusted officers and allies for what would likely be a defining moment in human history. "All right, team," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Today, we stand as one. We defend our home and prove to the galaxy that humanity cannot be underestimated." The officers nodded, their expressions resolute. They understood the stakes. The coalition ships, vast and imposing, drifted closer, their weapons primed and ready. As they reached a designated point in orbit, a holographic projection of the coalition commander appeared on the bridge of the Valor. "Commander Garros," the figure said, voice booming. "You have brought this upon yourselves. Surrender now, and we may yet show mercy." Garros stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "We will not surrender. We fight for our existence, for our right to choose our own destiny." The coalition commander laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You are foolish to think you can win. We will show you the true meaning of power." As the transmission cut off, Garros turned to his crew, determination set in his features. "Prepare for engagement. We will not back down." The battle that ensued was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Ships clashed in a chaotic dance of destruction, laser beams crisscrossing the void as explosions lit up the dark expanse of space. The Valor led the charge, its modified weaponry unleashing a torrent of energy that cut through the coalition's ships like butter. But the coalition had not come unprepared. They fought fiercely, deploying advanced tactics that pushed humanity to its limits. Garros felt the weight of every decision, every command as lives were lost and victories hard-fought. In the heat of the battle, he spotted a familiar ship weaving through the chaos, the U.S. Liberty, captained by his longtime friend, Commander Siravos. "Garos," she shouted over the comms, urgency lacing her tone. "We need to regroup. Their heavy artillery is tearing us apart." "Rally your fleet around the Valor," Garos commanded. "We push through together." With newfound unity, humanity's forces combined their strengths, forming a defensive line against the overwhelming coalition. The tides began to shift. With each passing moment, the moon's power surged through them, driving their resolve and infusing their weaponry with devastating effectiveness. But just as victory seemed within reach, a coalition flagship larger and more fortified than anything they had faced emerged from the shadows, its weapons primed for a decisive strike. Garos felt his heart sink as he recognized the insignia. It was the very ship that had been at the forefront of the coalition's operations, the Leviathan. "This isn't good," Brenner said, urgency in his voice as he monitored the tactical displays. "They're targeting the Valor." "Redirect all power to shields," Garos ordered, his mind racing. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The crew sprang into action, desperately attempting to bolster their defenses. The Leviathan unleashed a barrage of fire, striking the Valor with a deafening force. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring, and the crew fought to maintain control. But Garos stood firm, his resolve unyielding. "We will not fall. Humanity rises." As the battle raged on, Ison watched from a distance, his mind racing with the implications of what lay ahead. The First had entrusted him with the responsibility of observing humanity's evolution, but he felt a growing need to intervene. "Your people fight bravely," he said softly, his voice barely audible as he surveyed the chaos. "But the true test lies ahead." Summoning his power, Ison reached out, connecting with the latent energy of the moon. He drew upon the memories of the ancient humans, channeling their strength into a force that would resonate with Garos and his crew. In that moment, Garos felt a surge of energy flood through him, a connection to something greater than himself. It empowered him, igniting a fire within. "We are not alone," he shouted, voice ringing out across the comms. "We have the strength of our ancestors." In unison, the fleet responded, their spirits lifted by Garos' rallying cry. The crew of the Valor channeled the energy of the moon, infusing their weapons with a radiant glow. "Now," Garos commanded, and the fleet unleashed a volley of energy blasts that cascaded toward the Leviathan. The explosion was immense, blinding light consuming the battlefield as the coalition flagship buckled under the pressure. Cheers erupted throughout humanity's ranks as the Leviathan fell, its power extinguished. But the battle was far from over. Garos understood that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would test humanity's resolve and determination in ways they had never imagined. With the tide turned in their favor, the remaining coalition forces retreated, fear etched in their expressions. Garos watched as they fled, heart racing with adrenaline and the weight of victory. But deep down, he knew this was only the first act in a much grander saga. As the crew celebrated, Garos turned to Ison, who remained a silent observer. "What now?" Garos asked, searching the ancient human's gaze for answers. "Now," Ison replied, his tone solemn, "the true evolution begins. You must decide what kind of legacy humanity will leave across the stars." With the battlefield littered with debris and the echoes of battle still fresh in his mind, Garos understood. The victory they had achieved was not merely a win over the coalition. It was a chance to shape the destiny of humanity. As they looked out over the expanse of space, Garos and his crew recognized that they stood at the edge of an era, poised to either conquer or cultivate the cosmos. The choice lay ahead, a choice that would echo through history, shaping the stars for generations to come. The aftermath of the battle left Earth in a state of mixed emotions: relief, triumph, and an undercurrent of uncertainty. As the fleet returned home, Garos gathered his command team aboard the Valor, preparing to assess their next steps. "Victory against the coalition is just the beginning," Garos stated, standing before a holographic display of the galaxy. "We've proven our might, but we must now define who we are and what we want in this vast universe." Commander Voss nodded, her expression serious. "The coalition may have retreated, but they will not forget this defeat. They'll regroup and come back stronger, especially now that they know we're a force to be reckoned with. True, Garros replied, but it's not just about defense. We need to understand the coalition's motives, their alliances. We have a unique opportunity to turn this into something greater: diplomacy. Diplomacy? Brenner echoed, raising an eyebrow. After what just happened, they'll see any gesture of peace as weakness. We can't afford to think that way, Garros insisted, pacing the room. We have awakened something within ourselves, something that can bridge gaps. We can either be seen as conquerors or as allies. I choose the latter. His determination ignited a spark among his team, but doubts lingered in the air. Garros could sense it, the fear of the unknown. He needed to act swiftly to quell these concerns. Let's reach out to the coalition, Garros declared. We extend an olive branch. We offer to discuss terms. If we want to reshape the stars, we must do so with clarity and courage. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the coalition regrouped in the aftermath of their defeat. The mood within their ranks was one of anger and disbelief. Their commanding officer, a formidable warrior named Zeller, paced the command deck of the flagship, his brows furrowed in frustration. Humanity has gained strength we did not anticipate, he muttered, glaring at the holographic displays of the battle. They fought with a fury unlike anything we've seen, but they are still fools if they think they can be anything other than enemies. A council of alien leaders stood before him, each representing different factions within the coalition. Tension crackled as they awaited Zeller's next move. We cannot allow them to go unchecked, he continued. They must be brought to heel. We must rally our forces, forge new alliances, and strike back with overwhelming force. But they've shown unity and strength, one of the leaders protested, his voice trembling. We must tread carefully. If we attack again, we risk losing everything. Zeller turned, fixing the speaker with a cold stare. What do you suggest? We wait for them to consolidate their power. We let them think they've won. We consider the possibility of peace, a soft voice interjected, a member of a smaller, lesser-known faction, known for their wisdom. Perhaps there's more to gain through negotiation than through war. This could be an opportunity to redefine our relationships with humanity. Zeller's expression soured at the suggestion. You would trust these humans? They are a threat to our existence. It is our right to conquer, not to befriend. Or we can become the architects of our downfall, the wise leader countered. History has shown that those who fail to adapt are the ones who perish. We should at least hear them out. The room fell silent as Zeller weighed their options. Finally, he sighed, a flicker of indecision in his eyes. Very well. We will listen to their proposal. But mark my words, we will not let our guard down. Back on Earth, Garros prepared to deliver their message to the coalition. He addressed the council with a calm resolve, presenting the offer of diplomacy to the universe. Today, we stand at a crossroads. We have the power to either repeat the cycle of war or forge a new path. Let us be the harbingers of peace in a time of chaos. With the message sent, the waiting game began. Days turned into weeks as Earth's populace held its breath, anxiously awaiting the coalition's response. During this time, Garros took the opportunity to connect with the citizens, traveling to various nations, sharing the story of their battle and the importance of unity. He inspired hope, urging humanity to embrace their potential, not just as warriors, but as builders of a better future. As tensions eased slightly, news finally came from the coalition. They had accepted a meeting to discuss terms of engagement. A location was selected, a neutral moon in a distant system, far from the prying eyes of both sides. Garros felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This meeting could either be a turning point for humanity or lead them to a darker path. The crew of the Valor prepared for the journey, each member fully aware of the weight of what lay ahead. The neutral moon shimmered in the dark void of space as Garros and his team arrived aboard the Valor. They were greeted by a mixed delegation from the coalition, and as they disembarked, Garros took a deep breath, steeling himself for the encounter. Zeller stood at the forefront, flanked by his advisors, a stern look etched on his features. Commander Garros, he said, his voice cold but measured. You've come seeking peace. Do you truly believe it's possible? We believe that cooperation is the way forward, Garros replied, stepping forward. We've shown our strength, but strength alone will not define us. We want to understand each other, to find common ground. Common ground, Zeller echoed, a sneer crossing his face. You think we will trust the very species that has just defeated us? You've shown us your potential for destruction. We have also shown our potential for creation, Garros responded firmly. We can either be enemies or allies. Humanity wishes to join you in exploring the cosmos, not as conquerors, but as partners. The tension hung thick in the air as the coalition leaders exchanged glances, weighing their options. Garros could sense the uncertainty, the fear of change that lingered beneath the surface. Zeller's eyes narrowed as he contemplated the implications of Garros' words. And what guarantees do we have that you will not turn on us again? None, Garros admitted, unwavering. But the same applies to you. Trust is built through action, not words. Let us embark on this journey together, to redefine our roles in this universe. Silence enveloped the gathering as the weight of Garros' statement hung in the air. Would they take this leap of faith together? As the discussion continued, a flicker of hope began to emerge among the coalition leaders. Eisen, observing from the shadows, felt a surge of optimism. The power of humanity was not just in their ability to fight. It was in their capacity to connect, to inspire. After hours of tense negotiation, Zeller finally spoke again, a begrudging respect evident in his tone. Very well, Commander Garros. We will consider your offer of partnership. But understand this, we will not be easy allies. You must prove your intentions through actions. Garros nodded, relief washing over him. We accept this challenge. Together, we can create a future that benefits us all. As they sealed the agreement, Garros felt the weight of the moment. They had taken the first steps toward a new chapter, one that could redefine their existence in the galaxy. Returning to Earth, Garros shared the news with the council and the citizens. Cheers erupted, hope rekindling within the hearts of humanity. They had not only survived, but had taken a monumental step toward forging a new destiny. But in the shadows of the galaxy, whispers of dissent stirred among the coalition. Zeller's advisors remained skeptical, and a faction of radicals sought to undermine the fragile peace that had just been established. Humanity will pay for their audacity, one of the advisors hissed, plotting to sabotage the newly formed alliance. We will not allow them to dictate our future. As Garros prepared for the next phase of humanity's journey, he was unaware of the brewing storm that threatened to shatter the fragile peace they had just begun to build. The choice that lay ahead would not only shape humanity's destiny, but would also determine the fate of the galaxy itself. The excitement surrounding the alliance was palpable as Earth transitioned into a new era. The Joint Human Coalition Council began to take shape, comprised of representatives from both sides. Garros felt a sense of responsibility weigh heavily upon him. He was not just representing humanity, but also its ideals of cooperation, understanding, and resilience. In the heart of the council chamber, a grand table was set, adorned with flags from both factions. Garros stood at the helm, flanked by Commander Voss and a diverse group of coalition leaders, including Zeller. As the council convened for the first time, Garros couldn't shake the feeling of being at a pivotal moment in history. Today, we begin a journey, Garros declared, his voice resonating throughout the chamber. A journey towards mutual respect and growth. We have faced each other in battle, and now we stand united to forge a new path in the cosmos. Applause rippled through the assembly, but Garros noticed the tension behind the enthusiasm. The radicals within the coalition were still lurking, and he could sense the undercurrents of doubt swirling among some of the leaders. We cannot ignore the past, Zeller stated, his tone cautious yet firm. While we extend our hands, we must also remain vigilant. Trust is not easily given, especially in the wake of conflict. Agreed, Garros acknowledged, nodding in understanding. But this is our chance to redefine what we can achieve together. Let's focus on the future. As discussions progressed, they outlined a series of initiatives aimed at cooperation, scientific exchange programs, cultural outreach, and joint exploratory missions to neighboring systems. Each initiative was met with varying degrees of enthusiasm, and Garros worked diligently to ensure every voice was heard. However, just as momentum began to build, reports came in of skirmishes along the borders of coalition space. Garros' heart sank as he learned that rogue factions had begun attacking human outposts, undermining the fragile peace they were trying to establish. The radicals who opposed the alliance were taking matters into their own hands, and chaos threatened to unravel their efforts. "We need to address this immediately," Garros urged his council, concern etched on his face. "If we don't act decisively, we risk losing everything we've worked for." Zeller nodded, his expression hardening. "I will mobilize our forces to contain the situation. We cannot allow these factions to destroy our chance at a new future." As plans were drawn to quell the insurgents, Garros realized that this would be the true test of their alliance. They had faced external enemies together, but now they had to confront dissent from within. The coalition fleet, led by Zeller, launched operations to root out the insurgents. Meanwhile, Garros coordinated efforts on the ground, ensuring human forces were also engaged in the defense of their shared territory. The ensuing battles were fierce and chaotic. On one front, Garros found himself leading a small unit of troops, defending a strategic outpost from a sudden ambush. As blaster fire erupted around him, he fought alongside both human and coalition soldiers, their bond forged in the heat of battle. "Stay together," he shouted, rallying his troops. "We fight as one, for peace, for our future." With their backs against the wall, the defenders managed to repel the assault. But as the dust settled, Garros realized the grim reality: the insurgents were not just attacking. They were spreading a narrative that humanity could not be trusted, that this alliance was a facade. After the battle, Garros convened with Zeller and the council, urgency etched on their faces. "We need to change the narrative," he insisted. "We must show our people that we are united against this threat, that our alliance is strong. If we don't, we risk losing their faith." Zeller's brow furrowed as he considered the implications. "We must send a clear message that the coalition will not tolerate treachery from within. It may be time to take a harder stance against these radicals." "But a show of force could escalate tensions," Garros cautioned. "We don't want to appear as oppressors. We need to be seen as protectors of our shared values." "Then we must engage with the populace directly," Zeller replied, his eyes narrowing with determination. "We'll hold a summit in the heart of coalition space, inviting both our peoples to witness our unity against this insurgency. A show of solidarity that can't be ignored." Preparations for the summit began immediately. News of the event spread rapidly, generating both excitement and apprehension among the citizens of both factions. Garros knew that this was a critical moment to reclaim the narrative and demonstrate the power of their alliance. As the day of the summit arrived, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Delegates from both sides gathered, eager to witness the outcome of this historic event. The venue was decorated with symbols of unity, a visual testament to the bond they were forging. Garros stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding. He surveyed the audience, feeling the weight of their hopes and fears resting on his shoulders. "Today, we stand at a crossroads once more," he began, his voice steady. "We have faced battles, but the true fight lies in our hearts and minds. We must choose to embrace a future where we work together as partners, not adversaries." The crowd erupted into applause, but Garros could see skepticism linger among the more hesitant delegates. Zeller joined him on stage, adding his own powerful words. "We have witnessed the chaos brought on by a few who seek to divide us. Let it be known that we will not allow dissent to undermine our shared mission. Together, we will prevail." With their speeches resonating throughout the hall, the tension in the air began to shift. The summit became a platform for dialogue and understanding, as stories were shared and ideas exchanged. Humanity and the coalition began to see each other as allies rather than enemies, forging a connection that transcended past grievances. Yet, as the summit progressed, a shadow loomed on the horizon. In the depths of the coalition's territories, the insurgents were regrouping. They watched the summit unfold with growing fury, plotting their next move with a fervor that promised chaos. During a covert meeting, their leaders gathered in a dimly lit chamber. They believe they can erase our existence with words and speeches, one radical spat, his voice dripping with contempt. We will remind them of their place. With plans set in motion, they prepared to launch a surprise attack on the summit itself, aiming to sow discord and sabotage the fragile unity being forged. Back at the summit, the atmosphere was one of hope and camaraderie. Garros and Zeller had just announced a new initiative, a combined exploration mission to seek out new worlds together. Applause erupted, and for a moment, it felt as if nothing could stand in their way. But as the cheers echoed through the chamber, alarms blared. Panic swept through the crowd as the room was plunged into chaos. A voice crackled over the intercom, distorted and filled with malice. "You think you can unite? You are fools. We will end this charade once and for all." Gunfire erupted outside, and the summit's security forces scrambled to respond. Garros' heart raced as he realized the insurgents had launched their attack. "We need to secure the perimeter," he shouted, rallying the delegates to safety. Zeller moved swiftly, coordinating with his troops. "We will not let them destroy our chance at peace," he growled, determination fueling his every command. As the battle raged outside, Garros felt the weight of the moment. This was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the future they had envisioned. He refused to let the dreams of unity be extinguished by a few who sought chaos. With adrenaline coursing through him, Garros rallied a team of coalition and human soldiers. "We will face them together. We are more than warriors, we are a force for change." In the midst of the chaos, Garros and his team fought valiantly, pushing back against the insurgents who sought to disrupt the summit. Each step forward was a testament to the strength of their alliance, a reflection of the unity they were striving to build. As they fought, Garros caught a glimpse of the insurgent leader, a fierce warrior filled with rage. "You think you can erase our power with your empty words?" the insurgent yelled, lunging at Garros. With a swift motion, Garros dodged the attack and countered, grappling with the insurgent. "This isn't just about words, it's about our future," he shouted, wrestling the insurgent to the ground. "You're throwing away everything we've fought for." The insurgent struggled, but Garros held firm, fueled by his conviction. "Join us, or be left behind in a past that no longer serves us." As the battle raged on, Garros' determination resonated with the troops around him. They fought not just for their lives, but for the future of their alliance, a future where unity triumphed over division. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of struggle, the insurgents were repelled. The summit grounds were left in ruins, but Garros stood tall amidst the chaos, knowing they had defended their chance for peace. As the dust settled, Zeller approached Garros, his expression somber yet resolute. "Today, we face the darkness that lurks within, but we also witness the light that shines when we stand together." Garros nodded, breathing heavily. "We've shown that our alliance is stronger than the divisions that threaten us. This is just the beginning." The summit may have been marred by violence, but it had also forged a bond between humans and coalition members, a commitment to stand united against those who sought to tear them apart. As they surveyed the aftermath, Garros felt a flicker of hope. The battle for their future had only begun, but together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and in that unity they found their strength. In the wake of the insurgents' attack, the summit was left battered but not broken. Coalition and human forces had successfully defended the grounds, but the cost was high. Casualties lay scattered across the battlefield, and the tension that had once fueled their unity now hung heavily over the surviving leaders. Garros stood amid the aftermath, surveying the damage with a heavy heart. While they had repelled the attack, the insurgents had succeeded in casting doubt among the delegates. The dream of a unified future felt more distant than ever. "Is this what our future looks like?" one delegate murmured bitterly, his voice shaking with fear. "Fighting side by side, only to be torn apart by those who refuse to accept peace. Garros, still weary from battle, turned to face the crowd. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," he began, his voice steady but filled with exhaustion. "There will always be those who resist change, but we can't let them dictate the future we're trying to build." Zeller joined him, his voice carrying the authority of a seasoned leader. "What we've seen here today is not just the aftermath of an attack. It's the proof that our alliance, though fragile, is worth fighting for. The insurgents fear it, and that's why they're trying to tear it apart." The murmurs in the crowd began to quiet as Zeller's words sank in. The delegates, many of whom had been questioning the alliance, seemed to reassess their doubts. Yet the shadows of uncertainty still lingered. "We can't afford to hesitate," Garros added, his voice growing firmer. "We need to show the galaxy that our unity is stronger than the forces trying to divide us. And the only way to do that is to take action not just in defense, but in rebuilding." As he spoke, a new resolve began to take shape within him. The insurgents' attack wasn't the end, it was a challenge, and he was ready to meet it head-on. "We rebuild, but we also strengthen our defenses," Garros continued. "We'll root out the remaining insurgents, but we'll also work to heal the divides that led them to take up arms in the first place. Our mission isn't just about fighting, it's about ensuring that peace is something everyone can believe in." Zeller nodded, stepping forward to stand beside Garros. "We'll call for a galaxy-wide summit, one that invites not just leaders, but the people of both factions. It's time we stopped speaking in closed chambers and started speaking to the hearts of those we're trying to unite." The plan was bold, perhaps even reckless, but it was exactly what they needed. The insurgents had attacked the idea of peace, and the only way to counter that was to make peace an undeniable reality. If they could bring the galaxy's populations together, they could outshine the fear and distrust that had been sown in the shadows. The announcement of the galaxy-wide summit spread rapidly, igniting both excitement and apprehension. While many across the stars were eager to see what the future might hold, others remained skeptical. Still, it was the first step in Garros and Zeller's plan to reshape the galaxy's perception of the alliance. On the day of the summit, tens of thousands gathered on both Earth and in coalition territories, watching live broadcasts of the event. The grand stage was set in a neutral system, a place where both factions could meet without the weight of history bearing down on them. Garros stood before the massive crowd, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. He knew that this moment would define the course of their alliance, perhaps even the future of the galaxy. Taking a deep breath, he began his address. "I stand before you not as a human representative, but as a believer in something greater," Garros started. "A belief that our past doesn't have to define our future, that we can rise above our differences and create something new." His words were carried across star systems, and even as he spoke, he could feel the tension in the air. The insurgents hadn't been completely eradicated, and there were rumors of plans to disrupt the summit once again. But Garros pressed on, determined to reach the hearts of those listening. "We've fought together, and we've bled together," Garros continued. "And in that struggle, we've learned that our strength comes not just from our weapons, but from our willingness to stand side by side, human and coalition, as one." Zeller took the stage next, adding his own powerful voice to the message. "We are not enemies. We are not conquerors or conquereds. We are beings with the same aspirations, the same need for peace, for security, for a future where our children don't have to live in fear." As the two leaders spoke, a palpable shift began to take hold among the crowd. The fear and mistrust that had once dominated began to give way to something else: hope. For the first time, many of the galaxy's inhabitants could see a future where unity wasn't just a lofty ideal, but a tangible reality. But just as that hope began to take root, a chilling realization spread across the summit. Hidden within the crowd, insurgents had once again infiltrated their ranks, armed and ready to strike at the heart of their dream. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Explosions rang out, and the crowd scattered in panic as the insurgents revealed themselves. Garros and Zeller were rushed off stage by security, but Garros resisted. "No," he shouted. "We can't run, we have to stand our ground." Zeller nodded, his eyes filled with determination. If we retreat now, we'll lose everything. The two leaders, alongside their loyal soldiers, stood firm as the insurgents closed in. The battle that followed was fierce, but this time something had changed. The crowd, humans and coalition alike, didn't flee in fear. Instead, they rallied behind their leaders, picking up arms and defending the summit. The insurgents had hoped to shatter the fragile alliance, but instead they had strengthened it. As humans and coalition members fought side by side, they proved that their unity was more than just words. It was a force that couldn't be broken. In the aftermath of the battle, the summit grounds lay in ruins once again. But this time, there was no doubt humanity and the coalition had emerged stronger. The insurgents had been defeated, not just by military might, but by the will of the people. Garros and Zeller stood before the crowd, battered but victorious. "This is our future," Garros declared, his voice hoarse but filled with conviction. "A future where we fight for each other, not against each other." Zeller placed a hand on Garros' shoulder, a rare smile crossing his features. "Today, we've shown the galaxy what it truly means to be united." As the crowd erupted into cheers, Garros knew that their journey was far from over. There would still be challenges ahead, battles to fight and wounds to heal. But for the first time, he felt certain that they had laid the foundation for a future where unity could truly thrive. Together, humanity and the coalition had chosen their path. And now, they would walk it side by side, shaping the stars as one. The battle for the summit had left the galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos. Insurgent attacks, now widespread across multiple systems, threatened to shatter the fragile alliance between humanity and the coalition. But despite the scars left on the battlefield, a resolve deeper than fear had taken root. Garros knew that the next move would be decisive. Either humanity and its allies would rise, or they would be crushed under the weight of doubt and division. In the heart of coalition space, a final council was called, bringing together the remaining human and alien leaders. This time, the stakes were clear. They could no longer afford to respond defensively. It was time to take the fight directly to the insurgents. The underground networks that had sown so much terror had finally been exposed, and Garros had a plan to uproot them. "Enough of this," Garros said, standing before the gathered leaders. His voice, though tired, resonated with power. "We've tried diplomacy. We've given them chances for peace. But they want destruction, and if that's the path they choose, we have no choice but to meet them head-on. We strike now decisively before they can gather more strength." Zeller, now fully aligned with Garros, nodded. "They thought they'd tear us apart, but instead they've given us the clarity we needed. We fight not just for survival, but for the galaxy we want to build together." The council agreed. The final offensive would begin, with humanity and the coalition launching coordinated strikes on the insurgents' strongholds across the galaxy. But Garros knew that the real battle wasn't just in space. It was in the hearts of the galaxy's people, those who still doubted the Alliance's purpose. "We need to show them," Garros said privately to Zeller later, as they prepared their fleets for battle. "Show the galaxy that this isn't just a human war or a coalition war. It's their war, their future." Zeller agreed, and the two devised a new plan to broadcast their final stand across the stars. Every battle, every victory, every sacrifice would be seen by all. The day of the assault arrived, and fleets from both factions moved as one, launching their attack on the insurgent bases scattered across various star systems. Garros led the human forces while Zeller commanded the coalition fleet, their strategy fine-tuned for precision strikes against the insurgents' weak points. The fighting was brutal, but for every insurgent ship that fell, more allies rallied to the cause, inspired by the broadcasts that spread hope and unity throughout the galaxy. The insurgents, however, had been planning for this moment. At the heart of their rebellion lay an ancient weapon, a forgotten relic from an extinct race, hidden deep within a rogue planet on the galaxy's outer rim. It was a weapon capable of destabilizing star systems, and they had gambled everything on its ability to tip the balance in their favor. As Garros and Zeller's forces closed in, the insurgents activated the weapon, causing chaos in nearby systems. Stars began to falter, collapsing in on themselves as planets were thrown out of orbit. Panic rippled through the galaxy as it seemed like the insurgents' final gambit might succeed. But Garros was prepared. He had anticipated a last-ditch effort, and humanity had developed a countermeasure, something that had been in secret development ever since the coalition formed. It was an experimental technology, the result of Earth's advancements combined with coalition science, a weapon that could neutralize the ancient artifact's effects by stabilizing the energy fields it manipulated. "There's no turning back now," Garros said, watching the rogue planet where the insurgents' weapon lay hidden. "We destroy that planet, and we end their terror once and for all." Zeller, standing at Garros' side, nodded solemnly. "This is it, then. One final push." Together, the human and coalition fleets launched their attack, focusing all their firepower on the rogue planet. The insurgents fought back fiercely, throwing everything they had into the defense, but their forces were scattered, desperate, and disorganized. They hadn't expected this level of resistance, and they certainly hadn't counted on humanity's counterweapon. In a final, coordinated strike, Garros gave the order. The countermeasure was deployed, and the rogue planet began to destabilize. The insurgents' ancient weapon, once their greatest hope, turned against them, collapsing in on itself and sending shockwaves through their ranks. As the rogue planet exploded, the remaining insurgent ships scrambled to retreat, but there was nowhere left for them to run. Garros and Zeller's fleets hunted down the last of the insurgents, ensuring that no remnants of their terror would remain. The galaxy watched in awe as the final battle unfolded in real time, broadcast across every known system. The sight of human and coalition forces fighting as one, not just to save themselves but to protect the entire galaxy, ignited a new wave of hope. For the first time, the galaxy truly saw what unity could achieve. When the dust finally settled and the last insurgent ship was destroyed, Garros stood on the bridge of his warship, staring out at the battlefield that had now become a symbol of victory. "It's over," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Zeller, joining him, placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, it's just beginning." In the days that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild, but now with a sense of purpose that hadn't existed before. The insurgents had failed, but more than that, they had united the galaxy in a way no one had thought possible. Garros and Zeller became symbols of this new era, a testament to the power of unlikely alliances and the strength of shared purpose. The coalition, once a fragile partnership, now stood stronger than ever, with humanity at its heart. And as the stars settled into their new paths, one truth became undeniable: humanity, in its ascent, had reshaped the galaxy's destiny. They had not just won the war, they had won the future.